Be warned for spoilers for things that are literally decades old. Welcome to Max's Tavern. I'm currently drinking some water because I drank a little too much at home the other day. Today we're going to be talking about my two all-time favorite movies, End of Evangelion and Full Metal Jacket. Since last week's topic was Evangelion, we're going to start there. But first, if you haven't already, you should subscribe to our Patreon where you can get access to new episodes of Max's Tavern a week early, view scripts, vote in exclusive polls, and more. The link is www.patreon.com/DZ_productions. End of Evangelion opens on the ruins of Tokyo 3, then a hard cut to Shinji standing over a comatose Asuka Soryu in the hospital. After trying to shake her awake, Shinji accidentally exposes the poor girl. Following a questionable decision, Shinji looks at his hand and quietly states that he is so fucked up. End of Evangelion is the culmination of Hideaki Anno's original idea for his series Neon Genesis Evangelion. The world has been freed from the threat of the angels and now watches the secretive group NERV for its next move. To say that I love this movie is an understatement. A lot of that love comes from the amazing series and getting to see a fitting conclusion for these characters that I've gotten to know. There's another big reason I love this film, but we'll talk about that at the end. First, let's talk about the characters. Now, Shinji Ikari is obviously our main character. I mean, been that since the beginning, but I think he kind of loses his protagonist title after his stunt with Asuka in the hospital. At this point, Shinji has been abandoned by his father, nearly killed one of his only friends, was forced to pilot a machine that has nearly killed him, and was forced to kill the first person to show him truly unconditional love. He's probably right to say that he is fucked up. To me, Shinji is one of the greatest protagonists in all of anime because of how realistic he is. He deals with loads of traumas that are enough to cause any person to go into the suicidal state that he is in throughout this movie. One part that it absolutely breaks my heart to watch every time is Shinji having a gun literally to his head and him not reacting at all. He literally gets shot at and he just flinches a little bit. He really just wants to cease existing at this point. As someone who has struggled with depression and suicidal ideations, it was weirdly cathartic to see a very accurate portrayal of that. And then in the close of the movie, Shinji does eventually choose the pain of life just so that he can experience the few joys that are in life. Something that is so difficult to find in the darkness of depression is that silver lining. One thing that is always a great tell to coming out of that hole is realizing no matter how bad things have gotten, there are still things to look forward to. And I really like them showing that in the movie and with Shinji's progression. Another character that I find intensely interesting simply because of the movie is Gendo Ikari, Shinji's father. Through the series, he is shown as this heartless man who is intensely driven to see the war with the angels through to the end. His true motivations are very mysterious throughout, but his goal seems to be revolving around somehow reuniting with his wife Yui, who has become a part of Evangelion Unit 1. Gendo becomes even more determined when NERV's parent organization, Sele, begins to raid the NERV HQ. As we talked about in the last podcast, he goes so far as to murder his former lover, and possibly even rub her defeat in the face. Go watch the podcast if you haven't. Gendo's plans kind of unravel as the third impact begins in a way he had never intended it to. Faced with his own death, he does start apologizing to the person he feels he hurt the most, his own son, Shinji. Before Ikari is then bit in half by a spectral projection of Unit 1. So Gendo is really interesting to me because his motivation is very focused. He really does have some remorse for how he had treated Shinji, but it comes back to one of the big themes amongst all the characters in Evangelion. He felt that he was unworthy of love without Yui, who had loved him completely. He used Ritsuko and Ritsuko's mother to try and band-aid the loss of Yui, but ultimately he knew he'd be unable to completely heal from that loss. The reason does not absolve Gendo of what he did and how he treated those around him at all, but it does make him pitiable, which is a character type that I really personally enjoy. They're interesting because I feel like a lot of people don't acknowledge a character as pitiable, instead branding them as tragic. The big difference is a tragic character is tragic due to actions outside of their control, something like Harry Potter losing his family before he was even born, having a prophecy made about him that put that family in danger. Pitiable characters dig their own graves. They make their own problems. Others that I would consider pitiable would be characters like BoJack Horseman, Severus Snape, and Rick Sanchez. They all live in a mess of their own creation, and people close to them all suffer greatly because of the things they've done. The other characters in End of Evangelion are really interesting to me, but the Ikaris are the most interesting, and what really sells the movie and the closing of different character stories for me. After the characters, the most interesting part is definitely the visuals. There are so many shots in the film that are just absolutely perfect. The carcass of Unit 2 staring up at the mass production Evangelions as they carry Unit 1 into the air. The sequence where a guard is stabbed in the back and his blood covers the nerve logo as Sally's troops infiltrate the HQ. When the Ray Lilith hybrid rises up through the earth to hold Unit 1 in their hands, there's just so much great horror imagery and just awe-inspiring set pieces within the film, and I absolutely adore it. Another really cool sequence to me is during Instrumentality, when Shinji has built the sandcastle pyramid with his friends, and just throughout the sequence you can see this swing going by itself back and forth, and it gets faster and faster as they're building it, and then eventually the friends get taken away by the mother and the swing starts to slow down, and it's just such a cool shot and I love it. End of Evangelion definitely earns points for its plot and its message. The overall story as a conclusion to Evangelion is fantastic. As a standalone, I really enjoy it too, but you're going to be lost as hell trying to just watch End of Evangelion on its own. But again, as a conclusion to Evangelion, it's amazing to tie up such an insane story of the human experience as a massive mountain to climb, and End of Evangelion does it in such a satisfying way that people still talk about it almost 3 decades later. From the attack on Nerve to the battle between Unit 2 and the mass-produced Evangelions, going through human instrumentality, and finally ending on a beach of blood-colored water with just Shinji and Asuka. End of Evangelion delivers so many just off-the-wall crazy moments. Finally, the message of the story really comes out, hope at the end of despair. After all has been said and done, after Shinji has been made to see countless tragedies from his friends and family, all as they're trying to convince him that life is worth living, he ultimately makes the decision that it is worth living, and that the joys throughout life are worth all of those countless tragedies. Now, I haven't forgotten about that other note, but we're going to save it for the end here. Next, I want to talk about Full Metal Jacket. Full Metal Jacket opens by introducing us to the main cast of characters as they have their heads shaved before boot camp. After seeing them lose all their hair, we are immediately launched into one of the greatest full improv scenes in cinema history, with the late R. Lee Ermey giving a absolute teardown of these cadets. At one point in time, I had watched this movie so much that I was able to do the entire scene from memory. It's so amazing. So, Full Metal Jacket follows JT Joker Davis as he goes through boot camp and straight into Nam. One of Stanley Kubrick's masterpieces, Full Metal Jacket gives a real, honest, brutal look at one of the worst wars ever fought by the United States. One of my favorite things about the film is that there really is no antagonist. An argument could be made for the Viet Cong sniper at the end, but she's more of an obstacle for the characters to overcome than an actual, like, defined enemy. You could also make the argument for Arlie Ermey's Gunnery Sergeant Hartman. But I don't think there's honestly anything malicious about Hartman. He's not evil. He's not out for any vengeance or personal victory. He's just a drill sergeant. He's a tough, hard as hell drill sergeant, but he's really just a drill sergeant. The flip side of that is that while there aren't any villains, there aren't necessarily heroes either, just soldiers doing their duty. Joker is the closest we come to a hero in the film, but he's not really heroic in any way either. He doesn't follow the traditional hero's arc. He doesn't display any real bravery. Hell, he falters when a senior officer asks him why he has "Born to Kill" written on his helmet, as well as a peace sign, just both together. I can't remember the scene word for word, but he stumbles on it. He doesn't have a real answer that is satisfying in any way. One credit to give Joker is he makes it very obvious he doesn't want to be in Vietnam. He's heard enough about the horrors from working as a writer, and he's uninterested in actually participating in combat. The only kill he has, he's forced into it. And it is in that moment that he develops a 1,000-yard stare, effectively being forced to kill this poor girl. I don't have nearly as much to say about Full Metal Jacket as I do End of Evangelion, because really, honestly, it is something that needs to be experienced to get the full effect. To be frank, the film is probably the best allegory for war we will get. I can sit here, give you the play-by-play, give it as best of a description as I can, but it will not give you the actual experience. I cannot recommend this film enough, but aside from the plots, the characters, and the subtext, there is one other thing that sets Full Metal Jacket and End of Evangelion above other films. I think that our own personal memories are a really great thing, a great tool for kind of setting our favorite films above the others. Evangelion, for instance, not so much End of Evangelion specifically, but the rebuilds of Evangelion and what led to End of Evangelion being my favorite movies is that the series was one of the very first actually mature pieces of fiction that I got into. I distinctly remember my cousin, the one that got me into anime, warning me and saying he wanted to be there when I watched it because it does deal with a lot of heavy themes like rape, sexual orientation, sexuality in general, abandonment, depression, suicidal ideations. Like, it's a lot. But he was there for my very first taste in serious anime, and that connection has stayed with me. With Full Metal Jacket, I would watch it almost every other week with my dad. We would hang out on the couch and watch it and trade off and on who would say a line. We would talk about the week prior. We would just watch the movie. And these experiences obviously won't be shared by you. And when you watch these movies, but overall, they're still fantastic films and very worth watching. But that does leave me with my question for you this week. What is your favorite movie and why? Do you have any special memories included with the first time you watched it, or do you enjoy it for another reason? If you're on YouTube, please leave a comment letting me know. If you're on Patreon, there will be a pinned discussion after the public release of this episode. But it's getting late and Max is giving out last call. Until next time, make sure to have a good night and drive safe. We'll see you later. Oh wow, you guys made it to the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Had to take my glasses off because it's too bright there. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, a comment, maybe subscribe, share it with your friends. If you want to make sure you see any other videos as they pop up, make sure to hit that little bell icon, and hope to see you in the next one. Bye!